Under Armour Orlando did not disappoint. Recruiting news and top prospects straight ahead.
Locked On presents The Portal, the daily podcast covering college football recruiting and everything NIL. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Welcome back into The Portal. I am your host, Brian Smith, longtime college football recruiting analyst and writer. Thank you for making The Portal podcast your first listen each and every day. Today's show is brought to you by FanDuel. New customers can get $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. Just visit FanDuel.com. Today's show is going to be about the top prospects from Under Armour Orlando. There were certainly plenty of them, underclassmen, offense, defense, a little bit of everything. But I want to highlight two or three players right off the top, and then I will break it down by position, starting on the defensive side of the football. Top guy for me was a player that I really don't care which position he plays because of his attitude, his blazing speed. He's 10.33 in the 100 meters. That never goes out of style. And just his attention to detail. CJ Bronaugh, he is a Windermere High School player, west side of Orlando. I didn't know anything about him other than his name and seen a few clips. But it's different seeing a young man live. Receiver or corner or free safety, again, I don't care. He played corner today, and he was absolutely fantastic, making plays on the football. And he's also a guy, again, attention to detail. Coach Cox, the DB coach, does not take anything lightly. He went out of his way multiple times to showcase this young man and talk about him. He gave him his MVP. He's probably about the hardest guy on the Under Armour circuit to impress, and CJ did it. Now, why do I say that he was a kid that was such a easily high-level performer? I just throw him out there at all these guys. It's just because of the maturity level. I don't think many kids really understand what it is to listen and then apply it immediately thereafter, teenagers in particular. I know that I wasn't very good at it at that age, so shout out to CJ and everybody else that did a good job with that today. Many kids did not. That will carry a lot of weight. That will give him a chance to make an impact somewhere. Now, CJ is technically committed right now to Nebraska, but he's got LSU, Florida State, Penn State, several other schools coming after him. I think he could end up anywhere. He's going to kind of play it out, but he really likes Nebraska and how they've recruited him. They jumped on him early, so good for them. But he's 6'1", I'd guess, probably 175 pounds. And he's just really put together. He's in track season right now. Really, really don't care about the weight so much because once he's done with track and just concentrates on football at the college level, he'll be a 190-pound corner. And again, he has a verified 10.33 100 meter. He ran 4.41 today from what I heard. This kid can go. I expect him to end up in the top 100 nationally. If he's not top 100, it'd be top 150, I think, conservatively. The only thing with him that I don't know about playing at Windermere, they don't always play the greatest schedule. But again, he did really good in one-on-one reps today. A couple other kids that I want to talk about. Chancellor Barclay, offensive lineman at First Academy. He is easily the most sound offensive player in terms of doing all the little things and just technically getting after it. There's some really good defensive linemen that I'll go over in a few minutes. Chancellor is a dude. Florida and Miami are probably trailing Clemson. If I was to project it, I didn't talk much to him about it today, and I didn't get any feedback from anybody that said anything other than Clemson, so I'm just going to continue on with that. But watching him, I kind of stopped after the second or third rep that I watched to really go back through it because he was so good. He was clearly the best offensive lineman there. And again, like personality-wise, elite. He was singing and having a good time after the event, talking about all the positive things to help his teammates and all the guys around him. He is a win at all costs kind of guy. He wants the team to win first before himself, and every college coach likes that. Frame's there. He could probably play center, but guard is a lock. I think he is a kid that, again, I project him to go to Clemson. We'll see how the official visits play out, but the Tigers would be my guess. As for another kid that's not really shocking, Noah Grubbs, quarterback out of Lake Mary High School, just north of Orlando. He's been committed to Notre Dame for a long time. I expect him to be a kid that remains committed. He seemed to be locked in from talking to him. Motion was great. His ability to go through the drills, pick up his feet, make a throw quickly, change arm angles, all of that looked good. And Noah's down to about 200 pounds. He's really put in the time in the weight room. He looks fantastic. That was the easiest pick coming into the day. He was the guy that completely led the quarterback drills. I think that he will be an electric player at college level at some point for the Irish. It's just a matter of when. They've got a pretty good quarterback room going for them, but Noah Grubbs is all the things you look for. Very intelligent. He's the guy you want in front of a camera. If you're going to be a quarterback, you got to be able to do that, and he can. He'll fit right into the Notre Dame culture. Those are 3 of 20, 30 kids that I at least wanted to highlight. And again, I'm going to go through this from this point forward. I'm going to go through this by position. I'm going to start on the D-line, go through the DBs, then I'll move back to the offensive side of the ball in the second half of this. So let's jump in, as they say, and let's just go ahead with the defensive line. First Academy is loaded. One of the kids that I really liked, he could play some 5 technique possibly, but I think he's a 3-tech. Alex Willis, he had multiple wins, really quick, changes directions, has the ability to use a one-arm stab and get by you. He'll grab with 2 hands and then pull guy down. Very good football player. I really didn't know much about Alex before today. Really liked him. I think that his stock will rise, and he's one of the better players in the state of Florida. He deserves all the credit. Brian Harris, he got D-line MVP from the Under Armour camp. Another guy very similar to Willis, that if you make any movement that is incorrect, he will make you pay, especially with lateral quickness. Those 2 players are very similar to one another. And Harris is at Mandarin up in Jacksonville, a program that always has players, had Jamie French and several other guys last year too. But he's also a guy that I think if you're not careful, he could go outside on you on an outside pass rush. He could play 5-tech. A tackle might be surprised by his power, but at the same time, he'll go around you. He has the ability to change directions well. Watch out for Penn State with Mr. Harris. At one point, it was Florida State, but from talking to him, I don't think Florida State's done a very good job with recruiting him, or maybe they're just not after him anymore. I don't know why, but that situation there has deteriorated. Penn State is probably the team to watch with Brian Harris. Chadwick Cannon, Spruce Creek, power player, 6'1", 6'2". I'm guessing he was 280, 290. He looks like a kid to me that could be a really good 1-tech and play some 3-tech. Spruce Creek's had some guys over the years. It's up in the Daytona Beach area. I expect him to also be able to play in a 3-man or 4-man line, depending on how you want to use it. In a 1-gap 3-man line, he would be a problem. And he's a guy that showed a tremendous amount of power today. CJ McCoy, another guy from First Academy. He had a great spin move, one of the best plays today in the one-on-ones. Really liked him a lot. Again, First Academy is loaded with him and Willis on the interior of the defensive line. There aren't many teams that are going to handle them. They might be the best team in the greater Orlando area and one of the best teams in Florida this next season. Jarius Rogers, Fleming Island. There's been a lot said about him. He's over 200 pounds, but he's not a guy that is completely filled out by any means. He needs to continue to grow. He's committed to Syracuse. He's got Florida State, USF coming after. Those are a couple of schools that will probably get OVs. South Carolina's got a spring visit set up with him. Does he gain the weight, and can he take on offensive tackles in the run game? That's the only question with Jarius. Good young man, really quick. I just need to see what he does against the run and how much he gains weight. He's a kid that you could label him in a lot of different ways, but one thing you can't deny is he is a pure edge rusher. There's no doubt about that for his future position. On the other side of the future position discussion is Elijah Golden, defensive lineman out of Cardinal Mooney in Sarasota. I don't know exactly where he's going to play. He's been in the wrestling room here recently, being on the wrestling team at Cardinal Mooney. He's down to 255. He'd probably be closer to 280 right now if it wasn't for that. He looks great, but what position is he going to play? There's debate about that. Virginia Tech, Alabama, Florida, Notre Dame, several programs have been involved with him. Those are 4 schools that will likely get visits. He's from Virginia originally before moving down to Florida. We'll see, but he could play strong side end. Maybe it's D-tackle. I know Notre Dame is one of the schools that's talked about D-tackle with him. There are others as well. He's one of the higher-rated players in the class, but I'm not sure exactly how he's going to pan out yet because, again, he's cut weight. We'll see how it goes, but he is a very good kid, and I hope he does well moving forward. There's a kid that if you don't know about him yet, you probably will very soon. Desmond Malpress, Atlantic High School in Jacksonville, class of 27, so he's only going to be a junior. I'm guessing off the top of my head that I haven't seen a kid with any better a frame. I'd have to go back and look for sure. Out of all the DNs that I've seen this year for long term, Desmond might have the best frame of anybody that I've seen. Just from the waist up, he's like carved out of what you're looking for because he's still lean. He's got some muscle to him, but there's more room to grow. I mean, if he wanted to get big enough to play strong side, he could do it. But right now, I think he's a weak side end. He's got some pretty good hand movement. He understands technique, and he's just quicker than about everybody. Some of the reps that he won, it was obvious that he was just a tremendous football player. You could even argue he was the best underclassman there in terms of long-term upside. Another kid, very similar, Frederick Ards III out of Jones and Orlando. Jones always has a bunch of kids. Length, tenacity, change of direction, and he's a fierce kid. He's aggressive, kind of fits the mold of a Jones player, doesn't back down, and he just needs to get stronger and keep improving technique. I don't think there's anything that's unusual about where he's at. He's got a high ceiling. We'll to see how much better he gets. The one thing I do know is playing against Jones' schedule, Ards is going to be a kid that gets better just because iron sharpens iron. And that's quite honestly the way that it should be. I love it when kids play at schools like that because it's easier for a guy like me to evaluate them. When we come back, we're going to continue on with the list. There's still a whole bunch of guys to talk about. March basketball is here, and there's no better way to get in on the action than with Prize Picks, the best place for daily fantasy sports. With Prize Picks, you pick more or less on at least 2-player projections, and if you're right, you can win up to 1,000 times your cash. Fast, easy, and it keeps the game exciting. One of the great things about it is you can make your picks in less than 60 seconds and move on with your day. It's not hard at all, and it's really quick and easy to get in and out of the app. Download the app today and use code LOCKEDONCollege to get $50 instantly after your first $5 lineup. That's code LOCKEDONCollege for $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. Prize Picks. Run your game. All right, now let's continue on. Like I said a minute ago, we've got a ton of kids in terms of the defensive line, so that took me a minute, but there were some really good ones. I didn't get much time to watch any of the running backs and linebackers, just got a little bit. I know one of the running backs, I heard he did really well, but I didn't see it, so I'm not going to comment on it. Noah Hamlin from Pensacola Catholic, he won the MVP from Under Armour. He's not the biggest guy in the world, but I know one of the guys that trains him. He's just really good in coverage. The kid that I saw that I liked was Elijah Floyd. I only saw a few reps, but he can run. He's got some length. He's from Rockledge. He can really change directions. He's instinctive. But again, I was doing the O-line, D-line when they were running those reps, so they overlap. I didn't get to see very much. As for the defensive backs, this is an area that there were so many good players. I could have added 10, but you can only pick so many. Here are a few. I mentioned CJ Bronaugh from Windermere. Again, 10.33, 4.41. This is a guy that can fly. Right attitude, listens, takes the information, applies it. Stock way up. I think he'll end up in the top 100 nationally. We'll see where he goes. He's at Windermere High School on the edge of Orlando. McCaden Brown, Cardinal Mooney, another kid, change of direction. He has athleticism. He has length. He listens. He's a kid that does well. I didn't know much about him, but he did really well today. Hopefully he continues on that path. He's a kid that I like. A kid that nobody probably knew a whole lot about because he's at Fort White, Jaden Jackson. Really aggressive. He undercut everything. Has a lot of timeliness with when to reach out to try to get a PBU. And quite frankly, he's not a kid that was afraid of anybody. He got beat like once on a deep ball on a fade because he played underneath. But that was the only one that I saw out of several. And again, he went up against some really good receivers. So Jaden Jackson, stock up. And it's great to see a kid from a small school like Fort White. Hats off to Jaden Jackson for helping his school get back on the map. Vondarius Wayne out of Columbia, he had a great pick when he also undercut one. It was right in front of me. I just remember it. He timed it on a deep route right at the last second, cut in front of it, made a great pick. Want to give him a shout out. Moving back to the offensive side of the football, I've already talked about Grubbs and Notre Dame commitment again. Really good accuracy, natural throwing motion. He's got the right personality. He will fit into their culture. Great pickup for Notre Dame. Zacchaeus Andrews is one of a gazillion quarterbacks that were good. Several were noted by several people there, actually, from talking to some of the other media members. And I think that it's difficult to really pick anybody. And I know that Jeff Blake, he's the quarterback guy for the Under Armour camps, of course, a longtime NFL quarterback himself. He made several guys stand up. I'm not going to go through like the whole list, and said, you guys made it really hard. There were a bunch of underclassmen, some younger guys that were just kind of coming up, and he was excited about it. Coach Blake doesn't take those kinds of things very lightly, so that's something to think about. I did watch Zacchaeus Andrews. It's a kid that I'd heard about. I really like him. He's from up in the Panhandle. He's class of 27, athletic, different arm angles. That kind of signifies what I'd heard from all the activity at the quarterbacks. I only spent about 10 minutes with him, but he's a pretty darn good-looking prospect. Running backs, like I said, I didn't get a chance to look at for more than a couple clips, so I'm not going to sit there and try to say who was or wasn't good. Unfortunately, again, they're running at the same time the O-line, D-line was going, and it ran really long because the kid got hurt. So I didn't get much on the running backs. As for receivers, Jamarian Simmons, Tallahassee Godby, he might have been the best one, debatable. Class of 27, he can flat out run. More importantly, he's just got an innate skill to break off and cut when he needs to. It's not a situation where he's just going to be doing something mechanical. Simmons is a natural receiver, and when you have traits like that that translate to the play each and every time you need to adjust, you get receptions. He also catches the ball away from the body, and he's also a guy that has, again, pretty darn good speed. Jamarian Simmons, I would not want to have to guard him in the future. Godby might have himself a really, really good player. Brian Harris, this is a kid out of Lake Mary. He plays with Grubbs. He's improved tremendously just since last season. I'd seen him recently at the 7-on-7 tournament Battle Miami in January. He was good, but I thought he was just as good, if not better, today because he's learned from his technique. He's just continuing to apply it in actual game-like situations, one-on-ones, especially his release point. I thought he was pretty good. I didn't know what to expect because, again, these are talented DBs. We're in Florida, press coverage. There is nowhere to hide. If you can't handle that, you're in trouble. And a lot of 6'3", 6'4" guys like Brian, they're not going to be very good at it. Well, he is. He has the lateral quickness to get off the line, and he's got reach. When you have length, like Harris does, it makes the world a lot easier. Sometimes those DBs got burned by getting up too close with him, and he would shield off a guy at the end and reach out. They couldn't get to the ball, but his length would allow it. He's a really good receiver. He's got a lot of room to grow too, both physically and in terms of his game. He's not done with what he's got going on. Tyron Wortham, really good hands, adjusts the football, catches through contact. He's one of those kids where if you think about the ability to make the play when it just looks awkward, like, okay, who's going to come up with this? This is just going to be passing. He catches the difficult football in a crowd. I like those kind of kids because a lot of receivers aren't that physical. Wortham is, and he has the ability to do it consistently. You don't always see that, so hats off to him. Kavion Thomas, this kid out of Georgia, Lowndes County, Valdosta, one of the most famous high school programs in the United States, 27. When he walked out on the field, I'm like, who's that kid? He had a tremendous frame, and then I looked at my sheet, and I'm like, oh, okay, 2027 kid, so he's got another year. That's kind of scary. He might even be 28, actually. Let me check that. But he's not a kid that looks his age at all. And to be honest with you, there aren't many guys that are built like him, regardless of what the situation is. And actually, Thomas is, let's see. Yeah, 2027 is what I got listed there. But according to this, no, he's 2028. Yeah, he's still technically a freshman in high school right now, and he looks like he's graduating. He'll be a sophomore in the fall at Lowndes County. So my bad, it's not 27. That is class of 28. I'm correct on my sheet too. That's a kid that has a world of upside. Can't teach frame. He's already got really good feet. And they were doing drills. I probably learned more about him in the drills than I did one-on-ones because kids, again, bigger, longer-bodied players, sometimes they struggle in and out of breaks a little bit. He did not. This is a kid that will blow up sooner than later. I really like Thomas a lot. Tony Brown, another 28 kid. Kissimmee, he goes to high school. I cannot pronounce the name. I'm not going to try and do it because I'm just going to butcher it. Speed, leaping ability, and high-level hand-eye coordination. And I say that last thing with the utmost emphasis. He had the catch of the day. It was a bomb to the right corner. I forget the quarterback on the play, but he made a one-handed catch rolling to the ground. Just tremendous catch. He's a slot receiver. I went and looked at some of his film, too, on Huddle. He's electric, but he's not the biggest guy, but he'll play through contact. When smaller players are that shifty and athletic, and then you add the mobility factor to get down the field, it's pretty unusual to see it for a kid that's only going to his sophomore year next season. That's going to be a kid we're going to hear a lot about. Dylan Wester, he's got some brash, just Florida in general, I guess, attitude. He backed up his smack talk, made some plays, got some speed, got moves. He's a kid at Booker, really good football player. I don't know if that many people know about him, but Dylan Wester out of Booker in the Sarasota area, that's a football player. Javar Bowden is probably the most difficult kid for me to figure out. Long, he's 6'5", 6'6". He just doesn't have a lot of muscle on him. I've seen him listed as a flex tight end. I don't know if he can play that, but he is athletic. He moved a lot better laterally than I thought. And he changes directions, but who's he going to block at his size? I don't even know if he's 200 pounds. I've heard Auburn and Georgia and all these different schools, but where does he play and what kind of offense is he going to be in? Is he going to be the boundary? I think he would get jammed some. I don't know where he's going to play. He's just a really good athlete. He's a heck of a basketball player too. Really interesting recruitment there. As for the offensive lineman, again, I mentioned Chancellor Barclay. He was the MVP. I thought that was pretty obvious. He's a heck of a player and a heck of a young man. Cannon Pickett out of Tampa Bay Tech, offensive tackle or guard. I don't really care which one you'd label him at. I think he could play either and be really good. He's 315 or so right now. He's probably a kid that's going to play tackle for the most part the rest of his career and be a dominant player at the high school level, but I could see him being a dominant player, guard or tackle. Maybe he plays a little both at the collegiate level. I don't think it matters. Good base, doesn't get out over his feet, and he does a lot of things in terms of changing what he's going to do with his hand. Sometimes he's aggressive. Sometimes he'll play off a little bit. He mixes it up. He's been coached well, and he likes the competition. Obviously, the Pickett family, DJ Pickett, his cousin, Booker Pickett is his brother. His family has all kinds of guys that are really athletic. So I'm curious to see where he ends up going, but he told me Miami, Florida State. More than likely he'll stay in state is what it's looking like. Great kid. Wish him the best no matter where he goes. Maybe the biggest powerhouse there in terms of just how he plays is Jacoby Green at Niceville up in the Panhandle, one of the rowdiest crowds in the state of Florida. Mississippi State commitment, brute force is what I wrote on my screen. When he puts his hands on somebody, that is the definition of heavy hands. Jacoby Green is, again, committed to Mississippi State, but I would wager after seeing him today, there will be other overtures from other schools, maybe Florida State or Auburn or Georgia. I don't know who, but he'll probably have some other options. I liked him quite a bit. Mark Holloway as an interior offensive lineman, that's a bull. He even beat CJ McCoy on a rep that was pretty good. He's a kid out of Lakewood, Mark Holloway. He's got a chance. Reese Woodrow from Orlando Boone, really strong kid, center or guard. He's underrated. I like giving some of these kids a shot because sometimes they don't get what they deserve. But that's my rundown. And again, that's just part of it. You only get to see so many kids because there's over 100 players there, and it's really hard to focus in. I'll go back through the reps. I'm going to have a ton, and I do mean a ton, of clips that go out on X at FBScout_Florida, and especially the Portal YouTube page. There will be a ton there, some on Instagram too. But to find Portal on YouTube, it's not the easiest, but LO-the-Portal is how you find it. There's another podcast called The Portal, and it's a little more difficult right now to find it. But you can get us on Apple, Spotify, or anywhere else you want to listen to it. But for the shorts, again, I would suggest that you go and check out The Portal on YouTube. I'm going to have a ton over the next couple of days. I'm organizing them, going to put some together in some different groupings, receivers, etc. It's a lot of fun. And there was a lot of talent there. Hats off to Under Armour for letting everybody come out and check out these kids. It's the easiest way for all the scouts to get to be in one place to see a ton of talent. It's not a lot of fun traveling to see somebody that's really good, but it's one or two players in a game. This way I can see 100 plus players in one spot. So that's pretty awesome. Thank you once again for making the portal your first listen each and every day. I truly appreciate it. I'm going to be back again with more information over the next couple of days about this. We've got IMG's Pro Day coming up on Thursday night. I'll put something up on Friday. And then next Sunday is the Miami Under Armour. So there's a lot more recruiting stuff. In just over a week, I'll get back into a normal schedule again. But this week will be a little more hit or miss with what times or some of this stuff's up, probably because I'm on the road a little bit traveling through Florida. But it's worth it. This is how you get the information. Got to see the kids face to face. Everybody have a good one. Take care.